You ever notice how love turns everyone into a clown? Even the people who swear they're emotionally mature. Yeah, ask Mordecai. Because here's the truth you don't want to admit. You don't choose who you fall in love with. Your wounds choose for you. And that's why love feels less like a fairy tale and more like a psychological experiment gone wrong. People think they're rational, logical, in control. Sure, tell that to Mordecai every time he saw Margaret walk into a room and his entire brain blue-screened like a Windows XP computer. See, you fall in love 3 times in your life. Not because it's romantic, but because life has a sixth sense of humor. The first, love breaks you. The second, love teaches you. The third, love reveals you. And somewhere in those cycles, you've been Mordecai, liking someone who felt perfect but wasn't meant to stay. Someone who made your heart race, but your life freeze. Someone who felt like destiny, but acted like a lesson. Funny how a cartoon bird understood heartbreak better than most adults. And here's the uncomfortable part. When you heard 3 loves, you thought of someone instantly. Just like Mordecai thinking about Margaret, even when he tried not to. Because love is a mirror. It doesn't show you the other person. It shows you the version of yourself you're afraid to confront. That's why it hurts. That's why it lingers. That's why even a fictional blue jay can trigger your whole emotional history. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the loves that break you, shape you, and wake you. The ones you repeat, the ones you lose, the ones you stop running from. Because the truth is simple. You don't fall in love 3 times by accident. You fall in love 3 times because life refuses to let you stay the same. Welcome to the lesson you didn't ask for, but desperately need. The first love is the one you swear was fate. You don't question it. You don't analyze it. You just dive head first like Mordecai, thinking he finally had his life together because Margaret smiled at him for 3 seconds. This love feels magical, intense, cinematic, and completely unsustainable. You think it's the beginning of your story, but it's actually the introduction to your first emotional collapse. Because the first love isn't about the other person. It's about you. The version of you that still believes love is supposed to hurt a little. The version of you that mistakes anxiety for passion and chaos for chemistry. This love destroys your emotional immune system. It blinds you with potential and deafens you with hope. You ignore red flags so hard they might as well be invisible. And when it ends, because it always ends, you don't just lose a person. You lose the illusion that love will save you. It's dramatic, messy, transformative in the worst possible way. Mordecai had this love with Margaret, that idealized crush that made him forget how to function, how to speak, how to even exist normally. You had yours too. You know exactly who it was. The person you thought was the one. The person you put on a pedestal so high they needed oxygen to breathe. The person who had no idea how much power you gave them. And that's the point. The first love teaches you that attachment isn't love. Obsession isn't devotion. And losing someone isn't the same as losing yourself. Even though it feels like it. It breaks you in all the ways you didn't know you could break. It shatters assumptions, ruins fantasies, and forces you to face a truth you don't want to hear. You weren't in love with them. You were in love with what you wanted them to be. And that realization, that's the first cut, the first scar, the first version of you that dies so a better one can crawl out of the wreckage. This is the love that leaves you on the floor, asking questions life will answer later. When you're ready, the second love arrives when you swear you're done with love. You know, that dramatic phase where you pretend to be emotionally untouchable, even though you still flinch when someone mentions the name of your first heartbreak. This love doesn't explode into your life. It slips in quietly, the way real lessons do. It feels different, safer, calmer, almost suspiciously healthy, if we're being honest. You're not obsessed this time. You're cautious. You're slower. You watch people's actions instead of building fantasies in your head. You don't fall fast. You fall consciously. And because of that, this love becomes a teacher. Not the gentle kind, the kind that hands you the exam before the lessons. If the first love broke your illusions, the second love exposes your patterns. It shows you how you sabotage, how you communicate, how you argue, how your insecurities slip out disguised as jokes. This is the love where you realize you don't actually know how to love. You only know how to cling. The second love teaches you boundaries, not because you suddenly learn them, but because crossing them finally has consequences. It teaches you compatibility matters more than intensity. That effort is louder than words. That love isn't supposed to feel like a battlefield. Even Mordecai learned this after Margaret. Every connection afterward forced him to grow, to understand what he needed versus what he chased. And whether you like the show or not, that's real life disguised as a cartoon. Because here's the truth nobody warns you about. The second love isn't meant to last forever. It's meant to fix the parts of you the first love broke. This is the love that teaches you emotional responsibility. The love that teaches you what reciprocity feels like. The love that reveals how different you act when you're not chasing a fantasy, but building something real. It shows you your emotional fingerprints, the marks you leave on people when you're not careful. And when it ends, because sometimes it does, it doesn't destroy you. It refines you. You walk away different, more grounded, more aware, more human. The first love breaks you. The second love rebuilds you, piece by piece, truth by truth. The version of you that walks out of this love is finally ready for something real. The third love doesn't feel like the first. It doesn't destroy you. It doesn't feel like the second either. It doesn't fix you. The third love feels real, uncomfortable but honest, stable but intense in a quiet way. It doesn't rush in like a movie scene. It arrives like truth, slow, soft, and impossible to unsee once it's there. This is the love that reveals who you truly are. Not the version you pretended to be in your first love, not the version you try to become in your second, but the version you've been avoiding for years. The third love sees through you, not around you, not beside you, through you. It knows your good intentions, but also your habits, your fears, your defense mechanisms. It sees the way you shut down when things get too real. It notices when your tone changes, when your eyes drop, when your walls come up a little too fast. And instead of running away, it stays. Not because it's perfect, but because it's real. This is the love that doesn't demand a performance. It doesn't need you to be impressive. It doesn't need you to be emotionally bulletproof, or spiritually enlightened, or whatever version of ideal you created to survive your first heartbreak. It just needs you to show up. The third love reveals your instinct to pull away. The moment things feel too good to be true, it reveals how afraid you are of finally being treated the way you always wanted. And that's the scary part. Being loved correctly feels foreign, when all you've known is emotional starvation. Even Mordecai had to learn this. After all the crushes, all the chaos, he eventually had to face the version of himself that wasn't hiding behind infatuation or nostalgia. Because the third love doesn't ask, "Who do you want to be?" It asks, "Who are you when you stop running?" It reveals your maturity, your vulnerability, your capacity to love without losing yourself. And here's the quiet, uncomfortable truth. Most people never reach the third love because it requires meeting a version of yourself you've never had the courage to confront. The first love breaks you. The second love teaches you. But the third love finds you, and it refuses to let you hide from yourself. This is where the real story begins. Not with intensity, not with fantasy, but with truth. Emotional dependence isn't love. It's survival instinct disguised as romance. It's that version of you that forgets your own name. The moment someone gives you a little attention. The version that abandons your friends, your hobbies, your goals, your identity, because your brain decided one person is now oxygen. We've all been there. And Mordecai, he was the poster boy for it. When he fell for Margaret, he didn't just like her. He rearranged his entire existence around her universe. Every decision he made was basically a desperate love letter, written by someone who forgot they had a life before a crush. That's emotional dependence. Not passion, not romance. Dependence. You smile while falling apart. You call it love while losing yourself piece by piece. You convince yourself that sacrifice means devotion, and that being always available means being valuable. But here's the truth. No one respects what comes without boundaries. Dependence feels like love from the inside, but from the outside, it looks like self-erasure. It's waking up every day trying to deserve someone's attention. It's over-explaining, over-giving, overthinking. It's apologizing for things you didn't do, accepting things you don't want, and shrinking yourself so the other person feels comfortable. It feels heroic. It looks pathetic, because loving someone isn't the problem. Betraying yourself is. Dependence makes you believe that. Losing them is the ultimate danger, when in reality, losing yourself is. And here's the worst part. You mistake anxiety for passion and pain for intensity. You start thinking, if it hurts this much, it must be love, right? No, that's not love. That's addiction, a chemical obsession mixed with fear of abandonment. Mordecai wasn't choosing Margaret. He was choosing the fantasy, the validation, the emotional drug that made him feel alive. Because he didn't feel enough on his own. That's what emotional dependence does. It makes you a prisoner, in a cage you built with your own hands. You call it romance, but it's really surrender. You call it loyalty, but it's really fear. You call it devotion, but it's really escape. Dependency isn't wanting someone. It's believing you're nothing without them. And that is the most dangerous story you can ever tell yourself. Let's kill one of the biggest lies you were ever told. Soulmates don't exist. There, I said it. Go cry for 5 minutes if you need to. I'll wait. Back. Good. This whole one perfect person made just for you idea? Yeah, that's Disney propaganda mixed with childhood delusion. Cute on paper, destructive in real life. You grew up believing there's someone out there who will magically get you, laugh at all your jokes, never misunderstand you, never hurt you, and love you even when you're dramatic, insecure, or emotionally constipated. That's not a soulmate. That's customer service. Look at Mordecai and Margaret. Regular show practically set you up to think they were meant to be. Same energy, same interests, same vibe. Like the universe was writing fanfic for them. But then reality showed up. And reality doesn't care about matching aesthetics. Being similar doesn't equal compatibility. Chemistry doesn't equal future. And loving someone doesn't mean they're the one you're supposed to build a life with. Their relationship didn't fail because they weren't soulmates. It failed because being perfect together in theory means absolutely nothing when life happens. Here's the truth you avoid. You don't want a soulmate. You want an excuse. A magical explanation for why your relationships fall apart. A fairy tale to justify your standards that no living human can meet. A fantasy that keeps you chasing extremes instead of choosing someone real. Because if soulmates are real, then every painful breakup suddenly makes sense. It just wasn't my soulmate. Convenient, right? The soulmate myth does two things. One, it makes you reject great people because they don't match your imaginary checklist. You want someone who understands your silence, heals your trauma, reads your mind, never annoys you, never confuses you, never disappoints you. Congratulations, you're looking for a ghost. Two, it makes you stay in terrible relationships because you're scared that leaving means losing the one. You hold on to mediocrity because you're terrified of starting over. You think, maybe this pain is just the universe testing me. No, sweetheart, that's not destiny. That's delusion with glitter on top. Real love isn't found. It's built with someone imperfect at the wrong time while you're both still learning how to be decent humans. No cosmic alignment. No magical connection, just mutual effort, maturity, and honesty. And that is worth more than any soulmate fantasy. The truth? There's no other half. You're already whole, and the person you end up with isn't the one destiny chose for you. It's the one you choose every day, even when it's inconvenient. Soulmates don't exist, but real compatibility does. Commitment does. Emotional maturity does. And that's infinitely more romantic than any fairy tale ever written.